regarding baseball, let's get into some baseball real quick. Has anything moved the needle for you guys in baseball this year? Have you guys been able to catch any baseball, or has it just kind of been back burner type shit?
The baseball I have been catching is on MLB The Show. Although I did watch John Means pitch that perfect game, so that was nice. Not perfect game, the no hitter. I think it was a missed ball, missed strikeout by the catcher that dodged the perfect game for him.
Dropped third strike, missed the perfect game because of a dropped third strike.
You hate to see it.
Do you think, okay, so first of all, that's like the biggest bright spot for the Orioles in like the last 10 years, last 5 years, probably for the next 10 years. I don't mean to be rude about it, but like we've seen 6 no-hitters already this year in baseball, and it's just now June. What is going on? Why is this happening? Are no-hitters becoming like a historic thing of the past to where, like, is it almost like, 60-yard field goals in the NFL where it's not as crazy of an accomplishment anymore?
Well, I'm pulling this like right out the air, and I'm no baseball expert, but I don't know if maybe nowadays, instead of like people really worried about being contact hitters, everybody's like really just trying to hit home runs, or they strike out. They hit home runs or they strike out. They want these big like plays. They're not worried about someone going, for contact. So maybe, pitchers are looking good because guys aren't as skillful with the contact. They're just let's hit it out the park. Let's get some guys on base. I've seen so many solo home runs. Like I said, I'm not a huge baseball fan, but it's like when you hit like solo home run, solo home run, solo home run, it's like we're not loading the bases. We're not getting people on and then bringing people in. Maybe that's what's helping pitchers out is these guys are just swinging for the fences and then they're missing.
Yeah, and in that regard, like pitchers know, okay, because these like the success rate on trying to hit a home run is probably so slim that the pitchers know they can kind of put the ball in a more aggressive location, and if the batter misses it, it'll be a pop up, it'll be a foul ball, or they'll just miss, they'll swing under it, whatever the case is. I'm kind of like, I'm not as impressed by perfect games anymore, just like the same way I'm not impressed by home runs. Like, it's almost like, or by no hitters, excuse me. I do think perfect games are still kind of like going to be the new thing, the new rare thing to happen, because like we said with John Means, I think, that we'll start seeing that happen more and more the more we see no hitters. But I just think it's one of those things where it's like, it's a part of the game now. And honestly, it's not as embarrassing for the team that gets no hit because it's one game out of 162 games. And it's almost a failure if you don't score 7 runs in a game anyway. So it's not even like a big deal as it used to be. I just think it's becoming such a part of the game. I feel like as a pitcher, it's still a huge accomplishment, but I just don't think it is as major of an accomplishment as what it was, especially considering like batting averages are at an all-time low compared to like the rest of baseball history because of the fact of home runs and that type of launch angle type game. Did you guys see that they're coming out with the whole Derek Jeter documentary, the 6-part series or whatever?
Is it going to be kind of like Michael Jordan's one that they had, The Last Dance, kind of like the same thing?
Yeah, it's exactly kind of what they're trying to make it. Doing like a spin-off of The Last Dance with Derek Jeter. And I don't honestly like, I feel like I'm more of a baseball fan than a basketball fan, to where I would enjoy the Derek Jeter one more. But I feel like Michael Jordan was just such a polarizing athlete as compared to Derek Jeter. Like the Jeter one just doesn't interest me as much. I mean, just kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's more of a niche, a very large niche community. I'm not going to act like it's small, but it's like, I feel whether you're a basketball fan or not, everybody knows about Michael Jordan. But, as great as Derek Jeter was and as big as he was, I'm sure there's a lot of fans or a lot of people that aren't baseball fans that actually don't know that name. And that's not because he's not good. That's just because of how global Michael Jordan really was.
Mm-hmm.
And Derek Jeter was at the top of his game. But, I feel like your common person on the street's not going to just know baseball names as well as they know Michael Jordan.
And that comes down to the fact, too, like, if you look at baseball currently, the best player by far, Mike Trout. And you can ask some handful of random people on the street, and they don't know who Mike Trout is. So it's just baseball in itself, because Mike Trout is a absolute stud, and some people just have no idea because baseball doesn't get as promoted as these other sports do.
Yeah, I want baseball to figure it out. I think Derek Jeter was the first player to ever wear Jordan brand for baseball. If I remember correctly, I remember he wore.
Jordan wasn't wearing Jeter brand.
Yeah, exactly.
There
Right.
you go.
Yeah, because Jeter was a
That
kid.
tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure Jeter wore Jordan brand. He was the first baseball athlete to wear Jordan brand in the MLB. I want to say. I wonder if that ties into it. But honestly, I think the part I would be most excited to watch would be about his post-Yankee career with what he's done so far with the Marlins and getting into team ownership and decision making. I think that could kind of be a cooler part of the documentary, and I'm surprised The Last Dance didn't necessarily go into that with Michael Jordan and the Bobcats or whatever they are now, as far as his ownership stake in them. But I also think
for a part 2, man.
I know, right? Like they'll do part 2. But I think a lot of people don't realize, or don't necessarily remember, that MJ documentary was more about the Chicago Bulls, and it was highlighted on Michael Jordan. It wasn't a Michael Jordan documentary about the Chicago Bulls, if that makes sense, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So did you guys ever hear the story about Ernie Shore?
No, who's that?
He was a pitcher for the, Red Sox, and he threw a quasi-perfect game. So Babe Ruth came in, walked the first batter, punched the umpire, got ejected, and then the next guy came up and threw a no-hitter. So he threw a perfect game, but because the first guy got walked by Babe Ruth, it wasn't a perfect game.
Wow.
Jeez. So Babe Ruth punched the umpire?
Babe Ruth walked the first batter and then started jawing with the umpire because I guess one of the balls was very close to a strike, punched him, and then got ejected. And then the next guy comes in and throws a no-hitter.
That's amazing.
That's one of my favorite stats ever. It's so funny.
A quasi-perfect game. That's kind of like the teams that throw the no-hitters, but it's like 6 pitchers. They go to the bullpen, and more people come in. It's not as great, but it's still kind of a funny thing to have happen. Did you guys, speaking of history, did you guys see the video floating around? I remember this from when it happened with the Mississippi Braves manager, the Philip Wellman, the tirade that he went on the field. He got ejected. Did you guys see that ever?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, you guys got to look it up. It's one of the greatest manager ejections of all time. He was on the field for about 2 minutes in the umpire's face, covers home plate, draws a bigger home plate around it, then goes to third base and picks up third base and chucks it into the outfield, then proceeds to army crawl behind the pitcher's mound, picks up the rosin bag, grenade tosses it at the umpire, lands right on the dude's feet, gets back up, picks up second and first base, and then walks out the back gate of the stadium and leaves. And funny fact about it, he was with the Mississippi Braves, who were in Double-A, and he ended up managing a game in Jacksonville when I was bat boying for the Suns. And my brother and I, we actually went up to him and got an autograph, and we asked him, we were like, hey, aren't you the guy that got ejected? And he was cracking up. He loved it. Like 11-year-old kid coming up to him, asking him about the ejection. It wasn't his proudest moment, but it's a great video. I'd go watch it.
Are baseball managers not as important, like, in a game as like an NFL coach or an NBA coach? Because it's like baseball's always had it where like managers will just go out, scream, yell, get kicked out, and it's almost like a good thing sometimes to like really rally the team and fire them up, where we don't see that like super often like in any other sport. Like, we've seen people in the NBA get ejected or whatever. I don't know if I've ever seen an NFL coach get ejected from a game, but it's like, why is it so big in baseball and no other sport?
I love it. I hope it's nothing that ever changes. If I had to guess, I would say because up until now, baseball has been the most subjective sport when it comes to officiating. So nothing used to be replay, right? So the manager could literally complain about anything. Balls and strikes, out or safe, whatever the case was, you could always have a reason to complain. And then I think when it comes down to it, like the manager, he sets the lineup, but I feel like the assistants and like the pitching coach and the hitting coach, they're all on the same page to where if the manager is not present, they can kind of all make those decisions themselves. As far as like what pitcher is going to come in, what substitutions are going to happen. But it's almost like fighting in hockey where it's like, it rallies the team. It tries to get people motivated. You could be losing 2 or 3 runs or 2 or 3 points in hockey, 2 or 3 goals, and a fight happens and everyone goes crazy and the fans are all in the game again, and it just gets people going. And in hockey, it's a 2-minute penalty.
Maybe in other sports like the NBA or something, we should normalize like a hockey style, penalty box where like, okay, Draymond Green mouthed off to the referee. He got sent to the penalty box for 2 minutes. That could be big in the NBA, like the final 2 minutes or something, or the final
5-on-4.
Huge. Yeah, imagine like people like Draymond Green or what other big like mouth guys are in the, I only think of Draymond Green, but like imagine an NBA player getting sent, to a penalty box, and like it's just like around some fans, so all of them can scream and yell at them. Enclosed, so no popcorn throwing, no water bottles.
They're just in a penalty box.
I think that'd be fun. Maybe that's a G League thing.
Hey, I'm here for it. Me, I'm all about adding different fun things into the sport to make it more exciting. Like if you go on a 10-0 run, you should get a power up for like a 4-point spot or something like that. Like if you do stuff during the game, you acquire like these little mushrooms like in Mario, and you get to like activate different power ups and stuff throughout the game to make it more interesting.